I want to talk about building our financial security foundation. What does this assets field have? And I think if Andrea talked about foundations, and Richard Cordray talked about steadying the ladder, and John talked about partnerships, I think the key here is that our financial security foundation needs to truly be built on a solid rock. And that's why I'm inspired about assets. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own story and my passion for this assets field. I'm going to say a few remarks about why I deeply believe we need the financial industry. And then I'm going to talk about the timing of our goals and why I think this is indeed our time. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about my own passion for this field of assets for all Americans. Thank you, Andrea, for outing me as a former banker, and I love the title of seed capitalist for the field. I came to the Ford Foundation in 1989. I was 10, and one of the first people I met was Bob Friedman, and he was introduced to me as somebody who truly could think differently about economic development. Not long after that, I met Michael Sherrodden. He had just written Assets and the Poor. And not long after that, the whole Ford Foundation changed in our view of how we would address poverty, and that we would add this frame of assets to our work. And so I did get to be there in an incredible time. I was at the Ford Foundation for that first conference that Andrea mentioned, and several of you stood up. At the time, I was about 7 months pregnant, so I now have a 16-year-old, so I remember that very, very well. And it is exciting to go from what was a few people brought up from Washington University in St. Louis in a couple of minivans, and a few people left over from a microfinance conference, to a room of thousands. And for me, your presence here today, and all of the people who've ever run an IDA program, who've ever worked on matched savings, it's you who gave us the right to be bold, the right to dream. You were the ones who inspired us, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. And I want to remind this field of who you inspired. You didn't just inspire Lisa Mensah, you really inspired presidents. And I want to think about 3 of them. First, President Clinton. Barely had this movement gotten started, and President Clinton was inspired to create the Assets for Independence Act and to introduce USA accounts. He even got ahead of us, not surprising. After that, you inspired President Bush. The whole message of compassionate conservatism found a home with our work on ownership. And President Bush trumpeted the notion that markets were indeed supposed to work for us all, and we were all supposed to own something and have a stake in this economy. And finally, President Obama, who in one of his earliest speeches talked about rebuilding the economy that he was now responsible for on a solid rock, and doing that with things like savings. The first president to call on expanding our savers credit and creating accounts for retirement accounts, individual retirement accounts for everybody, millions of people that were left out. So you have inspired presidents, and your work, no matter how modest it may seem to you, one community, one school, this has been powerful work. When I started hearing about individual development account programs way back in 1995, I kept meeting the people who had saved and for whom those savings had transformed their lives and their dreams. And for me, this field will always be synonymous with one woman I met in Chicago who had saved for the first time in her life $7,000. And she'd reached that not only with her IDA account, but with powerful matches. And it was that $7,000 that allowed her to buy a whole house, 3 floors, run a daycare center, house herself on one floor and her mother on another floor. And it was so transformative to me that beyond just the business, she was an owner. She was now an employer. It was huge, and it gave me the sense that something that Director Cordray spoke about, dignity. There was something to having an account with your name on it and with something in it, something that you owned. So this field that we work in together is so inspiring. My own personal inspiration, my dream about this field, where do we want to get to? Where do I hope we're standing in another 10 to 15 years, Andrea, no matter where we are? I hope we're coming back to an America where literally 40 to 50 million people who are currently not owning, not having a bank account, will be in this system with a new account. And if you ask very serious financial minds in this country, where do you really think we'll be in 20 years? They will admit that they see an America with account holding much broader, where people really do have money in savings for their future and everybody. My own dream is that that has to start with every American child. This is the field that gave us child accounts, and we should never give up on that dream. It's one of our best ideas. And I was proud to hear Andrea call for, it's the match. We so desperately need this matching money. People have taken responsibility, they have sacrificed, they have done the hardest thing, which is to save money, other than dieting. But we must match their sacrifice, and that's been the powerful message. We actually know that when you put together the diligent efforts of savings and you add a match, we can make progress. We can get to those high account volumes. And I'd like us to be bold. It's easy. How many of us know someone who owes the bank $20,000 on their credit cards? Most of us know somebody or ourselves. And I think we have to get to an America where we own, where our account values, what we save is $20,000 or $200,000. And we're the field who says that's not an impossible dream. It's possible. We've seen it in the lowest income groups. We've seen it because when you have time and diligence and match, you can reach those values. My own phrase is that we've got to help America own more than we owe. That's what I think we should be kept going forward with. This is the essence of net worth. It's the essence of wealth. It's how we're going to close a terrible gap in wealth in this country, and we really are all part of it. We're the field who knows that while income is so important, and nobody will get up this ladder without a strong job, no one will get the fruits of those jobs without income supports, we also believe that we need the boost to get on that ladder. We're ladder people, so I think this is very powerful. So if we're going to own more than we owe, we really need a connection to the financial field. And I want to come to the second part of my remarks and make a few comments about my sense of this financial field. So the shorthand of the assets field is you needed Michael Sherrodden to write Assets in the Poor and inspire us all, and then keep researching for the next 20 years. You needed Bob and Andrea to go build a movement. And Lisa was going to go do something with banks. That was the shorthand to the assets field, and nobody quite knew what that was. But I always liked this mission because I was pretty sure we wouldn't just surprise the financial industry with 50 million accounts, that they would have to be part of our field. And I thought my goal at first was to really prove to John and the other bankers in America that there was an account that could work for all Americans. I thought my job was to really prove the business case and prove that there were account dynamics, that there was a magic set of numbers that would work. And to be sure, there are indeed market dynamics that undergird any financial system. But I think the secret about the partnership with the financial industry that is coming in our future is that we actually need government to be the first mover here and to make accounts a priority. I think the industry is going to be ready to meet us, but somebody has to go first. And it's both in moving a match and moving a sound regulatory surround that makes those accounts possible. And we are really making progress on both those fronts. My first job was to find about 10 CEOs who became the advisory board of the Aspen Initiative on Financial Security. It took me a long time. I had to ask 100 to get 10, but they came. And they agreed with us that savings for life, from children to retirement, were part of the American future and part of this ladder. They became savings champions, and they were the voices that stood with me in 2007 when we came to Congress and said, you've got to build it from child savings accounts through retirement. Those champions became even more. Most of you know we moved into our headquarters here in DC in 2009, and more voices from the financial industry came to this cause. And we were doing this at a time that, as John has alluded to, has been painful for this industry. But I believe the reason why we need this industry to work together with us is because we know we need both of us. We need the energy of this room, the inspiration and the boldness, but we need a financial industry who understands that for them to succeed, all Americans need to be in this system. And I love John's word about partnership. That is our future. So I want to come to my last theme about timing. If we know that we have the right goals, accounts for everybody, an account that starts at the beginning of life, matches for everybody, a way to move personal sacrifice and private accounts forward, and we know we need an industry partnership that makes sense, then what is the timing for this third partner that needs to come to the table? And that is our policy partner, our government. And here I'm speaking about federal action. You're going to hear at lunch from powerful innovators at the municipal and state level, but talking about federal policy. And I might be a rare voice saying this is actually a good time for us, because this is a time about foundations. The house has fallen down. We are rebuilding an American economy. This is a time to get the foundation right, and it is a time when assets belong in the foundation. Many of you know that the debate in Washington now is really about what's the budget we're going to live with, what are the tax policies that are going to support that. We're no longer talking about surplus like we had in the Clinton years. We're talking about this very tough time of how to meet budget challenges. And if we talk about match, we know we're an ad. That's something additional. But it is something additional that so truly belongs in the foundation of this new economy that we're building. And that's why I feel our time is now. Many will tell this room we should wait. The struggle now is about jobs. The struggle now is about growth. So asset people, just wait it out another 10 years or so while the economy heals. But I feel that's really the wrong message for us. This is a tough war, it's a tough struggle, but there's also a hunger for what will build out of this war. What do we build? We know we can't just fix a net. We have to build this ladder, and we've always been ladder people. And the anchors of that ladder are being set now. That's what a budget's about. That's what tax policy's about. And so I think we should say to this very severe battle of what counts in this country, yes, we understand the jobs. We're the people that understand poverty deeply. But we also understand how to move up. We're ladder people. And that's where I think our timing is now. I think we're not an optional field. I don't think anybody needs to apologize for being pro-children's savings, pro-matches. This really is our time. I think we've had symbols of why we see this time. Our president put forward in 2 budgets an expanded savers credit. And I want to say why I think that's a victory for this field. If there's a presidential budget with matching dollars in it, that's a victory for this field. And I hope we take seriously the chance to keep saying that's what we want. I think the best part about democracy is that we can put forward our voice and our experience. And that's really the call I'd like to leave this room with. I'd like to ask you to go through this conference and ask every speaker that you hear, what do we do next? What do we add our voice? Many of you know my own personal story. My American story is that I'm from two countries. My father's from Ghana, and I lived there as a child. So I have many cousins living in West Africa, and I grew up every day knowing that my family didn't eat as much, didn't live like I didn't have anything like the assets we have in America. And my passion was always that I would work on the international sphere. This really changed for me when I met the individual development account field and the assets field. because I found in this movement what really ignited me. And I found that I could do it here in this country. For anybody who's a first-generation American in this audience, and I know there are many like me out there, you know that when you're born here, when you're an American, you get to use your voice. That's the point of it all. It's not just what you own, it's not just this beautiful concept of how wealthy we are, but it's also about our capacity to change and add our own voices. That's what's beautiful here. This is what I get up every day and do at the Aspen Institute with all of you. And I would challenge us, as we call this the state of our field. I think this is the time to use our voice to help say we have the proven tools, we know it works, we've seen people's dignity change, people's opportunity change, we've seen it at the small level, and it's time now to help us do this for our country. So Andrea, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to say good morning to everybody and to say it is our moment. Thank you very much.